Previously on the Wad Fam Chalk Pod.
Adults have left her down,
Yeah.
let her down her entire life.
Right, and she says the line of like, "Oh, I'm meeting my dad. It's fine."
Yeah.
And as a listener, I was like, "There's not even a second where I believe that is the case."
You knew that was a lie.
Like that's immediately apparent.
Not pun. Apparent.
Oh my gosh.
You said it, not me. I was just calling it out.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
And I'm Andrew Sabo.
And we are joined again this week by one... 2 times in a row!
Wait, what? Is that my cue? One Arthur C. Woods?
Yes, sir.
You want a clean take of that?
No, I don't. In fact, I right off the top here, this is my second episode with you guys. I have no idea what a Wad Fam Chalk Pod is.
So great thing. So you're familiar with Wits End at this point. Ice cream parlor and Discovery Emporium in the town of Odyssey.
I am, indeed.
They have a drink called the world famous chocolate soda, which Jack Allen in an episode shortens because he's out of sign letters to Wad Fam Chalk Pod or Wad Fam Chalk Sod.
Oh.
And so we made a pun of that and changed the S to a P.
As in podcast.
Right.
Got it. Clever.
So our name is short for the world famous chocolate podcast, I guess.
Yes.
But yeah, that's why we are called that. Does it make perfect sense now, Arthur?
It does. Yeah. Now I'm actually reading it in front of me. The world famous chocolate podcast.
Yep.
All right.
So yeah, we're talking about part 2 of The Chosen One. This is episode 606. It's written and directed by Marshall Younger, and it originally aired December 16th of 2006, which, crazy enough, was a week after part 1 aired.
Whoa. A real mind bender there.
Uh-huh. It is, it's the penultimate track on album 47, Into the Light.
Wonderful.
If
Very important to know
anyone
that.
really cared.
Actually, though, I would like to say that I do care, because there's not a lot resolved in this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
don't feel like anything was
resolved.
like, if to anyone who listened to the first part of this podcast, like, we had all these like, well, they'll probably talk about that in the second part, or they'll resolve. They didn't resolve anything, and then they just ran out of time, and the episode ended.
Yeah.
So for
Are we getting ahead of ourselves?
I mean, that being said, I love the episode, but yeah. This episode's supposed to be about foster care, and it doesn't even end with, like, Kelly joining the Washingtons.
I mean, it ends with the implication.
Oh, wonderful,
Right.
because implications are notoriously very reliable in the foster care system.
Everywhere. Implications are always reliable. I don't know what you're talking about, Andrew. There are 5 Kelly episodes after this.
I am aware.
Okay.
I did a little bit of a deep dive here, because when this episode ended, and it just ended abruptly, I was like, I need more here. So I went on the wiki site and saw, all right, so there is additional Kelly material coming.
Yep.
And then I even went deeper and found out who the actress was that played Kelly, and then found out she was actually in a whole bunch of cool stuff. But anyway.
Yeah.
We never talked about that, did we?
No, we didn't do our little like voice
Cast
actor
credits
corner
thing. Yeah.
for the last episode, but
This
yeah.
is the Chalk Squad's homework for the week.
go do a
look
deep
at,
dive
at
on
Kelly's
Kelly.
IMDb. Report back to us on Twitter.
Yeah.
Well, that was I actually did go on Kelly's IMDb, but was unless I missed it, her credit is not, her Adventures in Odyssey credit is actually not listed on her IMDb.
Adventures in Odyssey stuff never is because it is voice only. Or because it's audio only, rather. There's no video component, so IMDb doesn't catalog it.
All right.
which
There
is
you
why
go.
the wiki exists.
Mystery solved.
Yep.
Mystery solved. So this episode begins very
With a
unsewn.
promo, Andrew.
No, it doesn't.
We do a promo now.
That's
This has been our format for
2
over a
years?
year. No, I mean, it wasn't when we started, but I'm going to jump into the promo.
On the next Adventures in Odyssey, the truth is out about Kelly.
Yeah, this girl really needs someone steady who loves her. She's lost trust in everyone.
And the gang at Wits End feels bad that they couldn't do more.
Everyone in her life has rejected her.
Yeah.
Including us.
Find out how something Kelly told Ed Washington could mean something much bigger for his family on the next Adventures in Odyssey.
That was such a, beating around the bush way of saying what, it's
something. Somebody said something.
which I appreciate over just, spoiling the contents of the episode. Mm-hmm. But it is, a weird thing of, yes, something that someone said to another person is going to change that person's mind.
Yeah, they might as well say, on this episode of Adventures in Odyssey, something happens. The entire episode, stuff is happening.
So, Andrew, how does the episode begin?
The episode begins with a 1 minute recap.
Yeah.
Essentially, have we covered an episode that had a full minute of recap?
Yes, but they're usually not included on the AIO Club.
Yeah.
Normally, they do that for the radio, but not for the home releases. But apparently, no.
It's just very important we know how mean this child is. And all the terrible things she did last episode.
I think it's a pretty good recap.
Oh, no, it is good. It is good. And only listening to the promo just now made me kind of pick up on the icky feeling of projectifying troubled youth. And I didn't really get that vibe from the episode, but I definitely got that vibe from the promo. Of it being there's this person that needs help, and she's kind of our group project, almost. I think that this episode does a really good job of humanifying or
Humanizing?
Kelly. Humanizing Kelly and making her a very complex character. And especially, I would just like to get this out of the way that I am going to be voting for Ed Washington in November. I love him. He's a good dad, it seems. I mean, unless you guys have a very different take, I'm gonna put my feet down and say that he's a swell gentleman, and I like him a lot.
Yeah, I could do that. I could go with that. Yeah.
You can go with swell gentleman
Swell
Ed.
gentleman.
So more importantly than the recap, this episode begins with us discovering, much to the chagrin of those of us listening, that Connie's book is really gone.
Gonzo.
Forever.
Done. Finite.
It was interesting because it was Eugene who was going through the computer to make sure it was really gone, and he actually says that she has expertise in computers. So now we're dealing with a 10-year-old who's an expert in computers and a child prodigy when it comes to piano playing and music writing. And
It's all the nicotine, man.
it might be that. I need some more backstory. Where did this kid earn all her skill set?
Yeah, not only did she delete the file and the backup, she also emptied the recycling bin and deleted the recovery images.
That's the only stuff I do on accident.
I don't know what you're talking about. There's not a My Scrubs soundtrack episode that never came out.
Yeah, never. Certainly.
Andrew didn't get rid of 1/2 of our audio during quarantine.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I did. Whoops. I'm so sorry about everything I put you through. Be sure to bring it up with my therapist next week.
Oh my lord. It's fine, Andrew. I still like you.
Thanks. I still like you too, Dylan. Arthur, does it feel like you're sitting in on something?
This is a special moment.
Yeah.
With
Oh,
Dylan
man.
and Andrew. Glad to be part of it.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Connie is livid, right?
Right.
She's
She's
so
going... What is her threat?
She wants to choke her or wring her neck?
Yeah, it was pretty violent.
Yeah,
That's
this
what
is
it was.
a 10-year-old
Yeah.
girl, and she Okay, I get it. It's a 600-page book. Connie...
637.
I don't know how large your delusions of grandeur have to be to believe that anything that you write is going to mean anything to anybody other than
really
people in your
cynical.
car. Well, art is for the creator, not for the audience.
Oh wow, we could really go down that rabbit hole. In the first episode, they were saying
Podcast is proof of that.
Exactly.
in the first part of this episode, they were saying that this thing could go out to millions of people, literally millions of people.
And they would
Connie
probably
said that.
all
Eugene
think it was bad.
had a spit take.
Yeah, well, Eugene had a frying pan up to his head at the time, so who knows?
Who knows? Maybe he's made of magnets. No, but yeah, and Connie is... And then Eugene's like, well, given the circumstances, it makes a lot of sense. It's unfortunate, I understand. And Connie's like, I am going to abuse this child because she deleted my book. I don't care. Like, I know she was in a tough spot. And I'm like...
Yeah, it did kind of go from like, I just found out that Kelly's been abused by her mom, but I'm literally going to continue to abuse her.
Yeah. I wouldn't actually do it, but I want to ring her.
Right, but that's... Yeah, I get that.
Here comes the voice of
level
reason.
I get that level of frustration where you're like, look, like, I'm not actually going to hurt this person. I'm not capable of that. But I really want to.
Yeah. No.
Because I've invested a lot of time into a thing and now it's gone.
I feel like you're talking to me a little bit, and I'm sorry.
No.
Okay.
You guys need a minute?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
want
I
me
feel
to
like
step
this
out?
is deleted audio coming back again. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So what? We find out... Oh, I guess, was it clear to you guys at the end of last episode? Maybe we didn't talk about it, or maybe I just kind of missed it, but Kelly running away?
Yeah, I did kind of miss that. I mean, not necessarily running away from home. We obviously knew that, but her running away from Wit's End.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think that was made clear.
Okay.
At all.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, I very well could have missed it, but like, then Wit comes in, or Wit walks in, and Eugene's like, did they find her? And I was like, what happened?
Unless it was like there
no
was
time really passed.
Yeah. Unless there was a bell ring, I would have to go back and re-listen to the part 1 to see if there was any like footsteps, bell ring, inclination. I was, thrown off by presumably what everybody else was.
Right. So the police found her, and she's now at the Department of Human Services.
Woohoo! Everybody's favorite place.
Yeah, we find out that she's from Richland, which is apparently far away from Odyssey.
Yeah, quite far. Well, she took the bus.
Yes, true. And yeah, then Wit goes into a lot of the logistics of the situation and the legal process and how all that's going to shake out.
Yeah, essentially, getting her... So, there's enough evidence to remove her from her mom, right? Yep. To legitimize getting the, government involved, essentially. But there is a good chance that she could end up back with her mom because this is the first time this is coming up, and oftentimes, courts, they don't want to separate parents from children when at all possible. There's going to be counseling involved, and there's counseling for her and counseling for her mom. But then Wit then goes off on like what you're saying, this whole bit of, her father left when she was 7. Her mother had boyfriends that she really liked, but none of them stuck around. She had been kicked out of school, so the juvenile detention stuff was obviously real. She had been given up on by school counselors and things like that, which, like, how troublesome can a elementary school child be to make an adult counselor give up?
Right. Well, and then we get the final note of, and there was even a church that told her not to come back.
Yep.
Which unfortunately feels kind of real.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Like that.
It's absolutely real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna once again kind of default to Arthur on just kind of your feelings about this whole segment of, yeah.
Well,
Everything.
it struck me. I mean, both parts of this episode have struck me very real, which I like. To say that Laura had several boyfriends after she and Kelly's father split, is, I mean, that's just so common. That's exactly what happens. And while we don't necessarily say this in the episode, unfortunately, a lot of times it's those boyfriends that become some of the abusers as well. And that's unfortunately extremely common, that there's just these guys that are in and out of the house. And, and so a lot of times that does lead to abuse.
Yeah. And the other thing I think that's...
And even if they're good people, like even if they didn't abuse her, just the fact that...
That revolving door.
Yeah, that revolving door. And maybe
Exactly.
she put hope into things being good again every time a new guy came around.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I think it's really interesting too. Like we have the fact that she is 10, as like an established part of the show, and then this in this kind of summary of her past history brings up the fact that her dad left at 7,
Yep.
which means that, like, I mean, you can imagine things maybe weren't great before to get to the point where her dad left, but also the multiple boyfriends and stuff has all happened in the past 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, and 7 would be pretty much right when she's going into kindergarten, first grade. So, like, talk about growing up in a unstable home environment and, like, what that can do for you developmentally. And, that's just, it's tragic. And like you said, like, it's totally a thing.
It really is, and it leads these kids to lose trust in everyone, whether it's the people they know in their life, or strangers, or caseworkers, or police officers, or even God. It is just, they can't trust anyone anymore. Their trust has been broken too many times, and...
Well, I would say that God's even harder, because at least you can see people.
Right.
At least, God's an abstract idea, and especially in, depending on what her spiritual background has been like. Obviously, if she was rejected by a church, she probably went to church at some point.
Right, yep.
And so there's something there, but yeah, it's really easy for those kinds of people, even if they are able, I won't say those kinds of people, I hate that. For somebody that experienced something that Kelly did, to kind of be able to find some hope and some healing if they get in the correct channels, but never heal that God issue. Because if that's not a part of their healing, then they're just going, like, the church itself, I feel like, doesn't do a good job of reaching out and making amends, and it's going to be a lot harder for her to reconnect to that place of value when she's found value in other places because that place rejected her.
Yep. And I think that's... I say this more observationally as opposed to saying anything negative about the church, but your average church is not equipped to handle even just the strictly behavioral needs of a child from a really truly tough place like that. And while I don't think it's right for a church to say you can't come back to Sunday school, you can't come back to church, I mean, I do think they have to figure something out. They're just, at their default, they're not prepared for, kind of significant behavioral issues that Kelly probably displayed in church.
Wait a minute, is childhood psychology good for the church, maybe?
Yes, Andrew, I think you can fire that shot.
For it to be edited out.
But yeah, if you can't even get welcomed into the church, then how do you even get to the next step of being welcomed into the true family of God? If you can't trust the church, how do you trust God? And that thinking's a little reversed, but in the mind of a child who's just been rejected, well, if I can't trust the church, I can't trust the God that they preach about.
Yeah. Yeah, and the moment at which they all are kind of like piecing this together, and Wit's like, frankly, she's just lost trust, and someone is like, well, it makes sense that she would. Everyone in her life has rejected her. And then I think it's Ed chimes in with just the brutally honest line of like, us including too. Us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's kind of the moment at which all of the like kind of the degree to which things were heightened and we maybe had issue with towards the end of last episode with everyone pouncing on her at once is very much for this emotional payoff here.
Yes.
Wherein it's like, oh yeah, like we have also rejected her. And now like, yeah, we have to reckon with that.
Well, yeah, and I think that what it does is it points to, like, as Christians, you're called to see people beyond their actions, right? You're supposed to see them as children of God, and for them to kind of get wrapped up in the emotion of the destructive nature of her actions, they have like you said, they've become a part of the problem, and they've kind of abandoned what was supposed to make them helpful and special.
Yeah, I just this whole scene starting when Wit comes in and calls in Ed as well, and they just and goes through all of this, and then ending on that line of like, yeah, we also rejected her, I just found incredibly moving. I was this is a really well structured scene, and like it also really makes me feel for her.
Yep. And again, it also points to, I forget the term you used at the beginning, but the kind of person that Ed is.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
President Washington, 2020. Washington. Yeah. We could have our next President Washington.
He's so kind. He's so good, and that's the next scene, right? It's the Washington family dinner.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yep.
There's, they're obviously talking about everything. There's the comment made about trucks and toys and Kelly potentially living there. There's not... Oh, that's later. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There's the comment made about toy trucks.
Correct.
Trucks in the room. You still play with trucks.
Yeah,
just for decoration.
Right, exactly. I say as looking around at a bunch of toy cars as decoration.
Yeah, no, I have Legos in my room as decoration that I totally don't wait for Balin to come over to play with. That's never happened.
But yeah, so Ed has, we come in on like the tail end of him filling in the rest of his family about all this stuff. This is if you're just listening to these two episodes, your first real introduction to Elaine and Marvin, Ed's wife and his son. We already met Tamika last episode. And yeah, he then has this line of saying like, I really wish I could do something for her, referring to Kelly.
I love that.
And then
in walks Wit.
Yeah, and then Wit knocks on the door.
There is something you can do. Yeah, she wants to live with you.
Boy, I wish there was something I could do. Hey, Ed, is there something you could do for Kelly?
I do. I like that it's not quite that though.
No,
like it's like it is that structurally, but it's not quite on the nose to the degree of just like, oh my word, really?
It's not
like,
sitcom-y. Like there's a sitcom thing where it's like, how could things get any worse? And then fire alarm goes off.
They just got worse.
Yeah. I also, aside from all the conversation going on, the sounds of the dinner table.
So good.
Yeah. It is a really...
And the forks and it's so good.
It's a really well sound engineered scene. And we hear... Yeah, at one point, I think Tamika asks for the mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
And, like, you can hear a spoon going through mashed potatoes.
What I noticed about that is even after Wit started talking to them, the sound effects of them like eating and serving themselves. So like they're all just eating dinner, and Wit's just standing there talking to them like,
Right. Yeah.
I don't think
I don't think Marvin's that well-mannered, so we'll blame it on Marvin.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I'm probably not going to stop eating if you stop by. If I'm hungry, sorry.
It's just that level of comfort you have with your local ice cream man.
Yeah, of course. Ice Cream Man, Discovery Emporium, general friend of God and children. John Avery Whitaker. Yeah, so he comes over and he says, so he spoke with the social worker that has been placed in charge of Kelly's case, and Kelly had mentioned that she wanted to live with the Washingtons, and she was, like, this, like, catches them all completely off guard. They're like, wait a minute, like, why would they want us? I mean, Tamika, obviously, she threatened to hurt Tamika, and she wasn't particularly, affectionate with Ed or anything like that, but she was definitely. But that's the point. The point is that she cares more about them than she's willing to let on.
Yeah, and so we immediately have Ed and Elaine just making all of the excuses they can think of. Oh, and also to note, like, Kelly has been placed with a foster parent.
Yeah,
but this is in addition to that. Like, I'm just not that familiar with the system of all this stuff, so it struck me as a little odd. But
it's actually not odd at all. There are emergency respite foster parents who would be on call and would say yes to a kid with the understanding that the caseworkers or the county or whoever would immediately start looking for a more not necessarily permanent home, but a more long-term foster home. So this actually struck me very real, that Kelly had to go somewhere, and they put her in a family, and that family was willing to do it, but is saying, but this is not a long-term thing for us.
Okay, cool, well done show.
Yeah, I'm really glad.
And so it kind of ends on this note of just like. Yeah, of them just, like, they've made enough excuses that it's like, okay, this isn't really happening, and Wit is so disappointed.
Yeah, well, their excuses are, we just turned our spare bedroom into an office, and this child has so much baggage that we don't know what to do with.
Yeah.
And those are their words. Like, there's not much, and I get that. I get that there's some hesitation at first of being like, this person needs a lot of help, and I don't know if I'm the person that can give them that help. And especially when it comes to, I'm being hesitant about that and making giving the weight to that decision that it deserves is very important.
Yes.
You shouldn't write it off one way or the other right away.
Yeah. Right. And they also, they referenced the fact that, like, the spare room has been turned into an office, something we didn't really talk about in the previous episode because it wasn't relevant, but I'll bring it up here. Up until somewhat recently on this show, Xavier, who is the Washington's nephew, had been living with them.
It was Xavier and somebody else too.
Well, Antoine is the older brother who we never meet. He's already, like, at college. I think the implication is when the Washingtons show up as characters. But
is anybody else just like, the Washingtons have mad money? Because they just talk about all the vacations they go on.
Do they? They talk about the one that they were planning on going on, which was what was set up in the previous episode and sounded like it didn't really happen that often.
Oh.
Because it's, like, the big thing about, like, them leaving Marvin and Tamika at home for the first time.
Yeah.
That is the same trip?
I think it has to be.
Because I thought it was interesting that last episode, like, they plan a trip because of something Kelly says, and then this episode they cancel the trip because of Kelly. Like, Kelly's just completely dictating their entire vacation life.
Yeah. As she should.
That's the kind of president I want. Firmly in the pocket of a very sad 10-year-old.
And so then we do end on the note of Ed saying, like, you think I'd be able to talk to her, and Whit's saying like, yeah, I'm sure I can set something up for you to drop by the foster home and like have a conversation. So yeah, very, very much like seeds being sown for this to like, yeah, for them to come around.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
definitely. Well,
as a first time listener, Arthur, did you at any point think, oh, this isn't happening?
Oh, no.
yeah.
No, but I appreciated the process, the journey that they went through to eventually come to a decision that, pretty sure they were going to come to anyway. But, and I did like this scene between Kelly and Ed, where he's in the new foster home, and then the doll makes an appearance again.
Yeah, this is all. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So Ed goes over. Ed wants to visit Kelly, and then he comes over, presumably later that day or the next day. I don't know.
Yeah,
if there's any context we know about.
I'll say the next day they were eating dinner. I don't think he's there like at night.
Yeah.
He shows up, and the foster mom's kind of showing him around, and she's really sweet and like doing a good job. Like
I was expecting her to be like. I was expecting that to be a bad situation, and her escaping that would be like, oh, thank goodness we found a good foster home. You know, not all foster homes are great. But no, she's perfectly swell, it seems.
Yeah, I feel very similar. I was so happy that this was not she's, like, the situation is markedly bad, and so that's why, like, we need to get her out of this. Yeah. Like, there's a little bit of that with with talk later on about just like how the room's decorated and some of that stuff, but it doesn't feel like they're worried about like the influence that house is going to have on Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like, I don't think there's any concern that like, oh, this place is going to be bad for her. Mm-hmm. As much as there is a feeling of like, where like our place might be better and might also be what we're being called to do, but not as like an alternative to something bad, which I think is also really well done because it doesn't force their hand in the decision making.
Right.
Like, they still get to, they throughout this whole like
they get
wrestling
to
with the decision making. Right. That is the roll credits moment of the episode, but it's also the point of like, they're not being forced into this situation. They're making a decision, and it's good.
I'm very pleased, like on a meta level, that I feel like Odyssey didn't intentionally paint the social work system and Department of Human Services and stuff like that in like a bad light.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like a lot of media sometimes. And the truth of the matter is that I don't know that this is true, but it gets. Yeah, I'm not gonna preface it by saying the truth of the matter.
This matter is I don't know if this is true.
Yes,
that's hilarious.
Yes. The reality is I know nothing, but I do know that foster care gets painted in a bad light by a lot of television shows a lot of times.
Yeah,
and I'm glad to see stuff like social workers and counseling and things that are very important to me that Focus on the Family and I have not always agreed on they seem to be putting them in a good light here.
Yeah.
And it sets up well for like what you said, where the Washingtons aren't strong-armed into making a decision that isn't right for them or that they're not ready for. Like, because of a bad system, and I'm really, really happy about that. Because
I think it's exactly what you guys said in the sense that Kelly wasn't in a bad foster home. I think they tried to pitch it more as the Washingtons would just be a better fit.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So nothing wrong with the house she's in now, but clearly the Washingtons would be a better fit for
God
Kelly.
Wants.
Yeah, this is clearly God thinks it would be a better fit. So, so I thought that was good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so then, like you said, we talk the foster mom is talking to Ed about the doll, because that was like one of the only things that she brought with her, and she plays with it constantly, and she's going to, like, what'd she say, like, it's a half hour last night before she went to bed, I'm gonna need to replace the batteries. It's such a really cute, sweet moment of them talking about her as a girl, because then Kelly comes in and...
I can't smoke and this place smells like mothballs.
That was great.
Yeah.
That was my favorite line of this episode.
I can't smoke. Good. This place smells like mothballs. There could be worse smells.
I loved Ed in that exchange.
Yeah, I mean, it's, it's Ed asking, so how are things here? Well, she doesn't let me smoke.
Yeah.
Like, well, we wouldn't either. If you came to our house, we wouldn't either.
Unless you're out by the barn, like.
And I don't know what to say about the mothballs.
Yeah. Febreze.
Yeah. And so, right, Ed brought along Tamika's old keyboard as a gift for Kelly, which, super cool.
Yeah. And then we get the, why are you being so nice to me?
Right.
It hurts. It hurts.
And it's the why are you being so nice to me? And then when he's kind of like hemming and hawing there's no need to beat around the bush. We're not kids.
We're not kids.
Yeah.
Wait, no.
Last time I checked, you were.
Yeah. Well, and Ed, I really appreciate how Ed leaves space for Kelly to kind of direct the conversation. So, like, I feel like when there's adults talking to kids, adults tend to strong-arm the conversation, especially in a situation like this, where with Ed you get, like, a very much he's just there to see her. He's just there to be present in the moment with her. And he also roasts her by saying, in between your cigarette cravings, I think you're a child.
That's awesome.
I love it. But it feels so real.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's hilarious.
It's like the kind of comment that I would make.
Yeah, oh yeah. Definitely.
I think her response to all this also felt very real because, logic would tell you, well, Kelly, if you want to go live with the Washingtons, then in this particular moment, be on your best behavior and say what you need to say. And she's not. She's just, when he's like, so I heard you wanted to be with us. She's like, what? Like, just kind of like almost playing dumb. And then like he invites her over for dinner and like, my wife makes a good pot roast. I don't like pot roast. Well, we could make something else. Nah, I'm good.
Yeah. I don't want your food,
it's fine.
Old man.
Well, and then he's like, do you want me to, bring stuff over to like help decorate your room? And she's like, no.
Yeah,
I like
don't
it
you
like
want
this.
Toys or games?
Because he's like, this whole room feels kind of adult, and she's like, yeah.
She's like, I like other things, and I want to be like, what are these things? Okay, we know you like cigarettes.
Yeah.
Like, what else?
She likes reading really existential philosophical works. Like, what's that?
Yeah, it does. It is a thing that feels real. Of like, her guard is still all the way up.
Mm-hmm.
Like when she was in a place that was like somewhat anonymous and confidential to say like, yes, the Washingtons are
right.
Like,
yeah, good point.
Like that's who I want to be with if there's an option. But then when facing it, you just don't own it, and you're just kind of like, yeah, sure. Like, but she also says like, you wouldn't want that. Your daughter hates me. Mm-hmm. Is like part of it as well, which I think is that thing too of like, she's justifying to Ed why it wouldn't work,
right?
Because she's been in so many situations that haven't worked.
You're right, because she, even when in terms of justifying that it wouldn't work, she even said like, I just thought because you gave me the doll that, obviously it doesn't mean you want me to come live with you. Like she's building a case for why she shouldn't live with them. Like you said, justifying that.
Yeah. Well, and I see that as her scrambling, because I bet that girl knows about HIPAA privacy laws, because if she's seen as many counselors and social workers and everything, she's been read her rights. She knows that she's not allowed to people aren't allowed to talk about. Wait a minute. How is Whit able to get information? Never mind.
He's Whit.
Yeah.
Doors just always open for him.
Yeah, that's fair. HIPAA does not exist for Whit.
He's above it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
He flashes the Universal Press Foundation business card, and they're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This guy.
Used to subcontract for the NSA. I guess we just let him know everything.
Yeah. He knows where we keep our bombs. Like, he can know about this child's personal information.
That's not a joke. That's a
Whit worked for the NSA.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, not directly. He was never on their payroll.
No,
but he worked with the
God.
NSA.
Yeah. Huh. God doesn't work for the government. He just works on the side of the government.
Right. Of course.
Focus on the family. Anyways.
Yeah, but
Oh, I love when we go there. So the next scene is Ed and Whit having a good conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Just being pals and chatting about this, but I do. It's nice to see adult friendship in a children's audio drama.
Right.
Yeah, no, definitely. You definitely get a very almost so Ed's definitely younger than Whit.
Yeah.
So Ed looks up to Whit, obviously. There's a little bit of that dynamic there. So, but it's not quite the same. They're more peers.
Right. It's not like when Whit's mentoring a child.
Yeah, or with, Eugene and Katrina or anything like that. Or with Tom, who's older than him and kind of his superior, and he respects because of that. It's a really pleasant dynamic that you're right. We really don't see much. We see it with Jack, and then we see it with Ed.
Yeah.
And
it's cool. I don't know. I like it.
Well, believe it or not, the part that I laughed at the most in this episode actually came from that conversation, and I'm not sure that it was meant to be funny, but it just struck me as funny because Whit says to Ed, well, Eugene has some experience in foster care, and Ed said, oh, was Eugene a foster parent? And Whit's like, no. It was just...
I would like to...
no, what are you, nuts?
Are you going to say it?
Yeah, Eugene becomes a foster parent.
That's awesome.
I'm not up to date on Odyssey, but I am aware that Eugene and Katrina are fostering a kid currently, I think.
Yeah, Buck.
That's so awesome. Oh, he was a foster parent? No.
No. Are you kidding me? What? Eugene?
Yeah.
Frying pan guy?
Yeah. It's also, this is also the scene where Ed's it's a good Christian home, and I think the parents seem really nice, but her room had antiques in it. It just they didn't really have a setup for a young girl. And Whit's kind of you think you could do better? And
wink wink nudge nudge.
Right.
Get it.
Yeah. And then suggesting he goes and talks to Eugene, which I brought up in the last episode of Eugene being a kid who was fostered, when we were talking about it last episode, completely forgetting that was a plot point in this episode.
Yeah.
And so it made me so much happier when the interaction happened, because I was like, oh yeah, I made that connection, and then the characters also made that connection. Because too often in any shows, they wouldn't make those sorts of connections.
Right. No,
Yep.
it would just go a different direction.
Oh yeah, seasons ago we covered that, but that's not relevant to now. So
and Odyssey makes a very good universe in that respect, where they just love their callbacks.
Time is a flat circle, but
yeah,
there is some continuity.
But that's a good segue into the conversation that Eugene and Ed have about foster care.
Didn't like this conversation.
Please tell me about it.
Yeah, no, I want to hear
it.
this, because I was just oh, is this the moment in this episode where I'm gonna cry? So I am but obviously I don't. Yeah, my perspective is very skewed. So
It's I was gonna say
I can only give my opinion.
that's good. The honest truth is,
what do you think this show is?
Yeah, this because I don't want to speak like emphatically here that Eugene was wrong, because certainly there could be millions of kids who feel exactly how Eugene explained.
no,
But
some do.
my opinion currently as I don't think your average foster child would feel privileged to be in foster care. Your average foster child desperately wants to be back with their mom and dad, and even if their parents were abused, they typically blame the foster care workers for ripping them out of their house and putting them in a different family. And I don't know how often they really feel privileged, and I don't know how often they really feel chosen.
So the thing I could say that might color this differently is just a little bit. One, Eugene's not a normal person.
Yeah, that's
and he definitely wasn't a normal kid. But the more relevant thing, I think, is he wasn't removed from a troubled home in any way. His parents went missing and then were pronounced dead.
Sure. Yep.
So there's not quite that thing of wanting to be like going back with parents.
That makes
it's
sense.
not as though
Yeah.
he was pulled away from anything. He was just on his own and then taken in, which I imagine could color an experience differently.
I think it would. I think that's a good distinction, because just thinking through the different foster kids we've had in and out of our house over the past few years, I don't think most of them would feel privileged to be in foster care. I don't think that would be a common response, but that does make sense with what you said.
Which means that what Eugene's saying isn't necessarily really relevant to Ed's situation.
Yeah, probably not, because
But-
I think Kelly would prefer to go home
Yeah.
today if she could.
I also think there's probably a level from Eugene's end of like, and he even says like, I don't know if I could have like put words to it at the time, but looking back now, like I felt so privileged to have been chosen. So like it is to a thing of like he's a grown man looking at his
back.
past.
Yeah.
Yep, fair.
Which is going to color things differently. But yeah, that's maybe not... It's... Right. It's a cool connection for the show to make, and it's a pep talk that I think does overall help Ed, like, reach his decision, but it's not as though, like, what is true of Eugene applies to Kelly.
Right, yeah.
Well, and that's the thing that I think is frustrating the most about this episode is how much of the emphasis is not on Kelly. Right? So like you want her to end up in a good foster care home, but the plot of this episode is not what does Kelly want. The plot of this episode is, can the Washingtons handle it? And is that what they're supposed to do?
Yeah, that emphasis on is what does God want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's...
Right. Whereas
difficult.
Kelly is very much our POV character in the first episode, which is why that episode hits so hard.
Yeah.
Ed is the POV in this, or the Washington family.
True.
Maybe Ed and Tamika, you could argue, but like it's not an episode from Kelly's perspective.
Yep.
Every other character enters scenes that she is in. We don't get, like, it's not like we're following Kelly and she shows up somewhere like last episode.
Yep.
It's we're following other characters and they show up at Kelly.
It's a good distinction.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, just to kind of springboard off something that you said about, just the idea of like being chosen and everything like that and wanting to be with your parents, even though that's probably not the healthiest place for you to be. And it's really easy. And I think that people, not to the same extent, because it's a whole other animal, but unhealthy relationships that used to be good are really easy to idealize.
Yes.
Especially if you
Absolutely.
like, because you love the person, right? So you want to believe that what their actions are showing you to be true about who they are as a person aren't true. Like, oh, they're just acting that way right now, and as soon as a couple of these pieces slide around, it's going to be fine. And the truth of the matter is, okay, maybe practical steps of self-care is what it takes for, somebody to start to right the ship that is their life, but you can't make decisions based on what's good for you and what's healthy for you off of hopeful thinking of the people that would be involved in that. Yep.
Yeah, to put you kind of on the hot seat here. I don't know, Arthur, if this is going to be a good question or not, but like from what we've seen over the past 2 episodes, from kind of the context we've given, is there a world in which it makes sense for Kelly to go back with her mom Laura, and what does it take to get there?
Actually, that is a great question, and the answer is yes, because the majority of the time the goal of foster care is to reunite the child with their parents. So we are, especially since this is the first time that Kelly's been put in foster care, now I don't know how it plays out in the Adventures in Odyssey story, but in reality, it would be a long process of trying to get Kelly back to her mom while her mom is working on herself, and there'd be multiple chances, and they would make sure that they were trying to keep Kelly as safe as possible. But the idea at this point wouldn't be, nor shouldn't be, let's give Kelly to the Washingtons so that they can adopt her. This is still, let's give Kelly to the Washingtons so they can take amazing care of her while Kelly's mom kind of tries to get her life back together. So we're still, again, I don't know how it plays out in the story, but we're still at a point where the goal would be reunification with Kelly's mom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
That's good. I think that would also be a disparity between the way that the foster care system is perceived by the general public and what it actually does. Like, I know for me, I grew up kind of thinking that foster care was the halfway house between being in an unhealthy or unsafe environment and being adopted by somebody else. Mm-hmm. And that is sometimes what it looks like.
It is that sometimes, yeah.
But it's obviously, like you said, it is the best for the child and for the parent if they can be together in a healthy way.
Yep.
And yeah, I think that side of things is often kind of, not given as much attention.
Yeah. And we don't know a lot about Laura's kind of the stuff that she's been dealing with. We know alcohol is involved. Mm-hmm. So let's just say she was able to get her alcoholism under control. Mm-hmm. If indeed it is alcoholism, but let's just assume it is. Let's say she got that under control. Maybe everything else is fine. Maybe everything else is great, and Kelly can safely go back to her. But there would be a period of time that kind of like the court system and the county and caseworkers would really have to believe that Laura kind of got her act together and Kelly could indeed be returned safely to the home.
Yeah.
What is the age where the child is allowed to choose? Is that 13?
They get a lot of rights at age 14.
Oh, 14.
Where they have a lot of say in their own care. Mm-hmm. Now, that said, a county or a court system can completely overrule, if a 14-year-old kid is saying, I want to go home to mommy and daddy, a judge can say, yeah, that ain't going to happen. Like, sorry, but that's not in your best interest. So, so while they do have a lot of rights and they do have a lot of input and say, there's still a team of people that override that to make sure that the child's being taken care of as best as possible.
Mm-hmm. So what if, and this is a question that is a little bit more tangential, not necessarily than the last question, but so if she was 14 and she did request the Washingtons, and the Washingtons weren't prepped to be foster parents, mm-hmm. and, you know, the Washingtons then agree to it, like, what does it look like for the Washingtons to kind of get inducted into the foster care system?
They could, I think Whit said this, they could try to somewhat fast track the training, and it's a very involved process. There is a lot of training, a lot of paperwork, a lot of background checks. It's a very lengthy process to be certified as a foster parent. But I do think if a county believed that this was an identified family that would be a great foster care resource for a child, I don't think they wouldn't eliminate those expectations. You still have to do what you have to do, but I do think they would try to move as quickly as possible through those and get them. So in this world, it would be a situation where Kelly would probably have to stay at her current foster home for, you know, maybe a couple months, few months until the Washingtons are all certified and background checked and home studied and all that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
makes
Thank you for
sense.
answering that question.
Yeah. No, good question. So we then jump to the Washington family meeting, which is, I think, a pretty cool scene.
Yeah, I do
Like
too.
Their family dynamic is amazing.
I
Yeah.
like
Just
the
like to
family
say that.
dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's cool. So Ed's kind of given the rundown about like, all right, so like, is this something we're considering? What does it mean to consider this? It's going to be a temporary arrangement, you know, and then kind of going around the horn and getting everyone else's take on what they think. Yeah, I don't know how they feel about this. And so Marvin's like, oh, it'd be great to have a sister.
I thought that was great. I've always wanted a sister. Like Marvin.
Yeah, and then yeah, goes on to be like, yeah, it's been kind of a bummer since, you know, my cousin and my brother aren't around anymore. Like, it would be, yeah, I think it would be cool to have another person. But also, Marvin hasn't, like, he wasn't in the previous episode. He hasn't interacted with Kelly at all. So it's very much just that, like, kind of aspirational, oh yeah, it would be fun to have someone else around. But I don't actually know this person. And then Elaine, this is the mom, is all of her concerns are about the logistics of it, which I related to so
much.
strongly. I was like, yep, that would be me in this scenario. And I also,
Do we need more bath towels to adopt this child?
I think it's a fun thing with this episode where, like, the emotional motivation is, like, they're more emotionally driven through Ed, and, like, it's Elaine who's, like, concerned about, like, the finances and the logistics and all that, which isn't, like, necessarily like your stereotypical gender roles. Which I just appreciated, showing like the complexity of human beings, and that like not everyone is like functioning the same way. And it's also a very close mirror to the dynamic that my parents have. And so I was like, I can appreciate it from that level as well. Of like, this feels reflective of my experience in a way that these things normally aren't.
No, yeah, I would definitely say, like, this is, you know, as good as the last conversation was with Ed and Kelly, I think that Ed is an absolute champ here, right? So he is talking to his kids and validating what they're feeling in this moment, like being like, so we're making, this thing has happened and we want to make a decision regarding it. And so I want to hear what you guys have to say. And Tamika's obviously hesitant about it because she doesn't have something good to say, but Ed's like, no, I don't care if it's good or not. Right. I want to know what you have to say. Like, because you are my daughter and I love you, what you have to say is important to me. Right. And even though those words are not shared, that's the way he communicated with his daughter. Like, that's what that conveys.
Yeah.
And I think it was legitimate too. Like, you know, you've got that stereotypical scene where a parent says, we want your opinion, you know, son and daughter, but they already know what decision they're going to make. They're just kind of getting the kid's opinion, just to make the kids feel good. I really felt like Marvin and Tamika actually inform the decision that the Washingtons made.
Well, and they do, and we see that.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the episode strikes a good balance of like not being like Marvin and Tamika like made the final decision,
Right.
but also being like their opinions were genuinely taken into account.
What do you
And
mean,
so,
parents partnering with children in decision-making processes rather than just strong-arming them into doing what they want?
Crazy.
Whoa, good parenting.
yeah.
Wow.
So Tamika's just like, when she finally does spit it out, she's just like, I don't like it. I don't like Kelly. She's exactly the kind of girl you wouldn't want me to hang out with. And then like the killer line of just like, why would you put your family through this if you don't need to?
Right.
Like, there is no reason that we have to do this, and this is going to cause tension, so why bother?
And that is one of the most common questions a family has to ask themselves when they're considering foster care or adoption is as a parent, why would I put my family through this? This is going to be hard. We don't know what it's going to be like, and it could actually end up hurting my children. Like, so why should I do this? And I think that's a great question. I think there's a dozen reasons why you should still, do it, or at least still think about it. But that is a very fair question. Like, there's no guarantees here. This could be a disaster and it could hurt our family. Why should we do that?
Yeah.
And Ed's on that page too, because Ed and Elaine kind of flounder in trying to respond, and then Marvin and Tamika leave, and Ed's just like, to his wife, just like, I couldn't come up with a response to what Tamika said because I agree with her.
Yep.
Like, I also feel this.
I would like to interject to say that Marvin proposes an interesting business idea where we trade Tamika for Kelly.
Yeah. Something to think about. Everything's on the table.
It's balanced, One in, one out. You don't have to worry about the logistics, the bath towel situation, as it were.
But yeah. And then he goes on this whole spiel, which I think is I don't know, could maybe the lightest point of this episode, of just being I was gonna kick back and relax. Like, this was the moment in which things had settled in and we had planned this trip, and our kids are old enough to be more independent.
Right.
And that's something that in reading the entries on this in the official guide, that the writer's even talking about in these episodes, of being like, Marvin and Tamika were getting to a point at which they're teens, and we didn't really want to do teen stories in Odyssey, which is one of the reasons that we wrote Kelly into this, is so that we could continue to have the Washingtons but tell stories about a younger girl. And I was like, oh, interesting. And so I think it's funny that Ed's
because Odyssey talking about teenagers.
And I hate to say this because I think Focus on the Family is doing a very good job with Kelly's character, and I'd like to think that they care about foster care and adoption. I'm sure they do. Yeah. But it is a very common thing even in television, that when you want to suddenly have a new son or daughter and you want them to be a certain age because that's going to fit into your we've adopted a 6-year-old because the writers needed a 6-year-old in the show, and adoption is the way to make that happen. So that's been pretty common. If you think back to a lot of your sitcoms over the years, suddenly someone's gotten adopted out of the blue, and it's like, well,
Elf.
or it's a younger cousin who's coming to stay with them.
Exactly.
Or that sort of thing.
They want to write in a specific age.
I feel like it's more of a thing used by shows that are they've kind of run out of ideas, and they're like, we need a new character.
Oh yeah. And so I think the show is doing two things. Of they're sitting in a writing room going, we want to keep the Washingtons around, what are our options there? Someone throws out, well, what if they adopt someone? And then Marshall Younger yes ands and goes, yeah, okay, but what do we actually do to make that happen? And I've got experience in this, having done it myself. Yeah. So let's not just like lightly go into that.
Yeah, I think it is both. I think you're right. I just remember the first time I ever noticed it was now I'm really going to date myself, but this goes back to like the 1980s with the Cosby Show. I don't know if you guys ever even watched it.
I watched the Cosby Show.
But the older daughter Denise got married, and the man that she married already had a daughter, and I think the daughter's name was Olivia. And then all of a sudden, there's this new character named Olivia on the show who was, you know, really the star of the show. In fact, it was I think it was Raven Simone.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Olivia was, as a little girl. But anyway, perhaps that is also tangential.
Yeah, whatever.
We don't do that on this show.
No.
Certainly never.
So it's this conversation about Ed being like, yeah, like I kind of thought like my parenting days were over, and like it was gonna be, because, you know, teenagers so notoriously easy to parent.
I'm an absolute delight. I think if you talk to my parents, they'd be like, this guy is so easy. Doesn't cause any problems ever.
And so yeah, but I like the fact that he's saying that, but it's all somewhat tongue in cheek.
It is,
and
absolutely.
like, it's not like because he's like, because that's when he's like, okay, I gotta make a call.
And then they're joking about it.
Right, and she's like, well, what for? You know, child services aren't going to be up at this hour. And he's like, no, I got to cancel our flight. We're not going away this weekend.
I thought his wife, what's his wife's name? I'm sorry. I thought Elaine handled that almost too happily. Like, I would be like, well, let's go on the vacation and then bring Kelly in after the trip.
Yeah,
like,
honestly,
because you've got months before you're even certified to be like, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Kelly.
Maybe it would be good to have
good
like
retreat,
one last retreat.
Right, you know, and Kelly was the one that said we should go on vacation. So I mean, I want to make her happy.
Our marriage definitely would benefit, and she would benefit from a good marriage from us.
Yeah, so
transitive property of foster care.
And anyways, I do like Elaine's enthusiasm as well, though, of just like, she's been pretty reserved about everything, but then like as soon as Ed's like, okay, like I think this is actually what we need to do, she was like, oh, thank God, I do as well. Like I was having those same thoughts and I just wasn't voicing them. So thank you so much.
I actually like that, because we didn't get any hint into what Elaine was thinking. So when we got her response and she was so over the moon excited that that's what they were going to do, it was a surprise to me, and a good surprise. I thought, oh, that's cool.
This is sweet. This is like, gives good feeling.
Yeah. And we get the great line of Ed saying, you know, I knew I shouldn't have married someone who was smarter than me.
Yeah.
Which is, I think is lovely.
Well, and there's I would like to, because we haven't really talked about it that much this episode, is the whole God side of things with, okay, is this what God wants us to do? And the discernment of God's will that's kind of happening over the course of this episode, which really, when they have that conversation before Whit shows up, it's not really a thing. Nobody really mentions it. And then after that, after Whit comes and they have that conversation, that's when prayer and thinking about it and doing that sort of thing is coming up again and again. And it came up at dinner about praying about it. And even now, like you said, Elena, no, that's my niece. Elaine?
Mrs. Washington.
Mrs. Washington to me decides that, like, okay, you know, I want to pray about this. I want to give it time, but we think that this is where God's leading us.
Right, because that is the important thing to mention, is like, this isn't them saying, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
It's them saying, okay, both of us are feeling like this is what needs to happen. Let's take some time, pray about it, process through things, and then kind of then we make our decision.
Well, and that's probably more so why they canceled the vacation and everything, because it was like, we were gonna live our best life and go on vacation and hammock in the Caribbean and such, and
and to the point we made earlier, they want to take their kids into account on this thing, and things haven't left, like nothing in there has really been resolved. It's like Marvin doesn't want it, or Marvin's gung-ho about it. Tamika was immediately against it, and so that's where things hang. And so in addition to trying to discern God's will, there's also that thing of we need to the conversation about what this looks like for us as a family has not ended.
Yeah.
And then then what's the next scene? It's the Wit's End with Wit, Connie, and Tamika and Eugene, and they're talking about Kelly returning the money, and the money showing up back in the register, and wondering kind of where it came from.
It didn't show back. So Connie received an envelope with $65 addressed to her.
Yeah.
That Eugene brings in, and there's no other information, but Wit kind of puts the puzzle pieces together and is like, Kelly must have stole that money, and then maybe she gave it back to you, Connie, to make up for as kind of some recompense for the book.
Mm-hmm. Which Connie's like, I'm still going to wring her neck because my masterpiece.
Is it wrong that my first thought was, oh, it's really nice that Kelly just stole $65 from her new foster family to repay the cash register?
Wit's immediately like, yeah, we didn't really consider how she was paying, how she was paying for everything. And I was like, but she sold $65 and she just gave back $65. So we still don't know how she was paying for things.
I'm still going
Are you just
with
assuming
the
she stole
shop
from other places?
Right, or you just keep stealing and paying back the people you steal from, and isn't that like a Ponzi scheme or something?
She's in a pyramid
It's a pyramid scheme or something.
She's the top of the essential oils
I think
pyramid scheme.
She's selling calling cards, I believe. She pays her people back and then steals from new people.
Yeah.
Sith Lords can do that.
They do. They can cheat death. I was going to make the comment that maybe she's the person, counterfeiting all the money from the Green Ring conspiracy.
Oh, wow.
Maybe that's what
a call forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, is there anything else in that scene? It just felt like,
no.
Oh yeah, I guess we didn't
address that. So.
We didn't really talk about the money last episode. We just kind of left that hanging.
Yeah. And we need to talk about the book just again.
Yeah. But because like you said, Dylan, because this part of the story is not from Kelly's point of view, we still don't know what happened.
Nope.
We're assuming now that this money came from Kelly and that she stole it and that she felt bad, but we don't know what she did or didn't do, and we don't know what her motivations were still.
Yeah, exactly. Everything is just conjecture on Wit's part, and and Connie's and Eugene's for that matter. But,
and that's what we get the next scene, right? Because Tamika goes to confront Kelly about it, essentially, and be like, just say that you're a good person and you gave the money back.
Yeah.
And Kelly doesn't do it.
Oh, yeah. So, because that's the other thing that scene. I forgot Tamika was there.
Yeah.
But that scene comes in on her opening up to Wit and Connie about the conversation with her family last night and kind of her stress about that. And then Eugene interrupts with the $65. But I don't know. I liked it as a thing of we continue to get to see Tamika process through this.
Right.
If the first half of the episode is so much us seeing Ed talk through, process through everything and kind of go on this arc, and then the second half we get to see Tamika do the same thing. Anyway, so yes, then Tamika does go to Kelly and say, What was it? How was it you phrased it, Andrew?
Tell me you put the money back and that you're stop trying to pretend like you're not a good person, essentially.
Yeah.
So I can feel good about you staying with us.
It is.
It's a very interesting scene.
The pace at which Kelly's voice transitions
Yes.
from normal
Yes.
to nasty
Yep.
Yeah.
is so
Record-breaking.
good.
Yep.
Like, such an excellent performance on Rachel Fox's end, and just like, yeah, just a good encapsulation of her character.
Yeah. It was basically the moment Tamika walked into Kelly's door, you heard a whole new Kelly. Like that sweet little Kelly was gone, and Kelly was ready. Like the fences were up, and she was ready to whatever Tamika was walking into that room. Kelly was ready for it.
Why are you here? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't think you liked me, or
Yeah.
like I thought you were scared. Or no, I think she says like, "Why aren't you scared of me?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Which
love
I think
Tamika's
is so
response
funny.
because
We're
you're
like-
like 10 and
Right.
I'm like 4 inches taller than you. What do
Three
you
and a
think?
half.
Yeah, 3.5 tops.
Like right, because Tamika is comfortably a high schooler at this point, and
Right.
this is a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like probably 6 years older than her, presumably. Which again, this is the frustrating thing about
Actually,
Tamika.
she's more than 6 years, because her learning to drive was last episode.
Oh,
Or last album, rather. Pointless continuity because I'm too into this show.
anyway, they yeah, like I was surprised that Tamika didn't play a more mentor-y type role. Like I was surprised that Tamika was less mature about this confrontation, even though she ends up making I think drawing a good conclusion from it and kind of seeing who Kelly is as a person and not necessarily as a some of her mistakes and her unfortunate circumstances.
Right, but the important and kind of bizarre moment of their interaction is that Kelly's the one to bridge the gap.
That's
Yes,
exactly right.
exactly. Yeah.
Which is like, this is
Tamika
the
was out
moment-
the door.
Right.
Tamika's a jerk.
So they
She's
have
not nice.
this hiss off, and then Tamika just goes to leave,
Right.
and then Kelly switches into her kind voice and is like, "Hey, is there a way to record on this keyboard?"
Yep.
And it's like, I don't know. It didn't really... It bothered me a little bit, where I was like, I don't know. Like, it felt like Tamika should be the bigger person, and also, like, I'm not sure I fully believe that Kelly's was able to, like, make that switch. But maybe it does speak to there being a part of her deeper down that really does want things to work out with the Washingtons.
Yeah.
And her realizing, like, okay, like, I gotta make nice to some extent.
Yep.
If this is gonna happen. But
I was okay with it. I bought it.
Yeah, me too.
I bought it. I thought Tamika blew it, and she was out the door, like literally just walking out the door.
She's not
and
a kind person.
Kelly brought it back, and then I think the weird part came then when Kelly's like, "Well, can you show me how to record?" It's like, "Oh yeah," and Tamika's like, "You see this humongous green button? press that to start recording, and then you see this humongous red button. Press that to stop recording." I feel like the musical prodigy and computer genius that Kelly is should have been able to figure out green means go and red means stop.
that is fair.
Yeah.
However, if anybody's tried to record something on a keyboard before, it is impossible if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, no, that's true. I've done it. I've done it before.
But
It's
this-
not a good time.
This does sound pretty simple.
They have
Yeah.
a lot fewer buttons.
Yeah.
And I do hope in a future episode we do get to hear more of Rose Petals in Love, or was it Rose Petals of Love?
Rose
love.
Petal.
Rose Petal of Love. That was Tamika's song, right?
Yeah.
And Kelly's was something about
Desert Flower, maybe?
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Certainly
It was something desert.
not commentary
But yeah.
on isolation at all.
It is Tamika then playing back, being like, "Oh, I think there are probably some of my old recordings on here. Here, let me play this one for you." And then presses play, and then that's our interstitial music again.
Yeah, it's
Like
so good.
It transforms into it, and it's I think
Well,
it's fun.
I didn't notice that right away. I'm listening to this recording, and then it starts musically building a little bit. I'm like, oh, this is quite a keyboard. And then I was like, oh, this is we are transitioning here. I get it.
I'm so used to the transition music of Odyssey
Right.
that I immediately was like, oh, I know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I didn't like the keyboard sound. I liked it a lot more when she was playing the old piano.
Yeah, the old-timey piano from... Yeah.
Yeah. It sounded great.
What I wonder, though, is, like, how much did Tamika really care about the songs that she wrote if they're just on the hard drive of her keyboard that she just gave away? Like,
I mean,
are they anywhere else?
It's not the creme de la creme, man.
I guess not.
I hope that the Rose Petal of Love is a song that she has, like, memorized. Or, like, I don't know if you could export from a keyboard in 2007. No, yeah, you probably could. Anyways, but
Yeah, but-
Rose Petal of Love
But
tour.
if you went up to Coldplay and said, I don't understand why you released that music on CD. You have it memorized. I think it's the exact same thing. I think it's an exact parallel.
yes, that you're right. You're right.
That is a watertight argument you cannot get out of.
You're right. Tamika is missing the opportunity to milk all the money out of this.
Yeah.
So the fun thing is, eagle-eared listeners will know that the Rose Petal of Love is a song that Tamika, when she tried to join Marvin's band, The Coolest Dog, in the episode The Coolest Dog, she tried to, like, convince them that, like, this was going to be the song they would do, and they all shot her down.
Oh.
So,
This is a future episode
This is
or
a past
episode?
So maybe she's moved past Rose Petal of Love after actually, shoot, the episode's called The Coolest Dog, but that's not the name of their band. The name of the band is The Coolest Dog, but in Spanish.
Oh.
Because I think Mandy makes the comment of, like, doesn't that translate to the cool dog? Oh, it's Los Perros Frescos is the name of the band.
Yes.
And it is Marvin, Tamika, and Wooten.
I need to listen to that episode.
All right.
Go give that one a go.
Yeah.
Go give that one a go. Go listen to The Coolest Dog if you're interested in hearing more of The Rose Petal of Love.
I really am.
Anyways.
Can we make Wad Fam Chop Pod, like, concert shirts? We're, like, touring.
For Los Perros Frescos?
Yeah. And their hit song, The Rose Petal of Love. Ooh.
That's not
And
bad.
only tour in fake locations in Odyssey.
Right, like they're playing in Odyssey, in Connellsville, in Oswald Heights,
Yep,
in
yep.
Richland.
Oh yeah, the amphitheater at Old West Fun World. You know,
Just
Sponsored by Wits End.
They've got a show at Campbell University.
Exactly.
All of the fake places. Anyways, so then we end on a delightful interaction between Tamika and Ed, where she apologizes to her dad and is like, yeah, I'm sorry about the other night, and he has what is such a fantastic line of just, you were telling us how you truly felt.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I will never be mad at you for that. She's like, man,
good dad.
yeah.
Way to validate your kid's feelings.
President Washington 2020.
President Washington.
Well done, Ed. Like, I was happy with that being his response. Because he also was asking for her to be honest and prodded her to say that.
Right.
So then for him to be like, yeah, like, that's what I wanted. Like, thank you for being honest. And then she responds, like, she follows up with, like, another great line of just, like, if you decide that the answer is no, don't do it because of me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I loved the way she phrased that.
Yeah.
Because she didn't say, Dad, I think the answer should be yes.
Yeah.
She was still saying, you guys decide. I don't know what the right answer is, but if you decide no, don't make it because of me. Like, I'm on board with what you guys think is right. I thought that was a good way to word that.
Yeah, great father moment, great child moment.
I get so excited and happy when I see parents being good at parenting and kids responding well to it. Oh my god. I can't explain it, and I didn't really know that to be true about myself until today. It's just like, whoa.
And so,
a rush.
What? Then we just go out on them deciding that they're going to do it. They're going to take in Kelly.
And then the episode ends like immediately.
Yeah, no,
right.
it does.
That's what I'm saying. Is it just like
we're going to take in Kelly,
and then Chris just starts talking with the rabbi.
In Matthew, Jesus said, like, "Wait, what?
Yeah.
No story.
Kelly didn't even say yes at any point.
Jesus is not in this story. Come on."
Right. I know. It's like I need another. Yeah.
I needed just a tiny scene, maybe a phone call at the very end between Kelly and Ed, and Kelly being like, yeah, that sounds really nice. Then you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. So I have...
Because other than what she said that one time to her therapist or whatever,
like,
she's never told... Yeah, she's never told Ed that she wants to stay with him.
Yeah. And so, right. So Kelly's story after this is we do get 2 more really solid episodes of like her navigating life with the Washingtons. Mm-hmm. But then unfortunately album 50 hits, which is like the finale to an era of Odyssey, and they like start off with new people and recast some people when they come back with 51. So like she gets a really quickly wrapped up, like 3 episodes. Here's like Kelly gets saved, and
does she end up back with her mom?
I believe so her last episode is 642, The Imagination Station Revisited Part 2. Mm-hmm. That's a great episode title that is not a mouthful by any means. But then like the Washingtons no longer exist as characters in Odyssey after that point, really. And so there is no closure to Kelly's storyline.
So
I mean, she becomes a Christian, so there's closure in that regard.
Yeah. And they, are we doing spoilers? But they adopt her too, don't they?
Yeah. Ooh. Do they?
I think I read that.
Now I gotta remember.
I don't want to be communicating false information.
It does. Here. Interesting. So it does say Kelly was adopted by the Washington family on the wiki, but I don't know. But it doesn't give a reference for an episode for that, and I don't remember it happening unless it just happens like in between episodes or something.
Right.
But there is some stuff that, especially like the next 2 episodes, and in general, I think it could be fun to come back and talk about Kelly some more. But
me too.
She isn't even like the Washingtons aren't present in her in the 2-part finale of Kelly. Mm-hmm. Like it is her going in the Imagination Station to see the death and resurrection of Christ, and then Whit praying with her at the end. And like that's where her character ends. So like if you want to come back on and talk more Kelly, or maybe get your wife on to talk about Kelly, I'm open to it. But unfortunately,
4 people at this table?
Like maybe we'll trade Arthur. Do an old Tamika for Kelly exchange.
Oh, I thought you were trading me for Liz. I was presuming that was going to happen. No. And I was like, you know what? It's the fall semester. I'll just time it during finals week, and I'll have a good excuse to not record an episode of the podcast I make.
Yeah. So yeah. I wish there was a more clear arc with her, and like that I could say like, yeah, and then like they continue to follow up with this character, and like this is where she lands. But unfortunately, just because of like the timing of where the show's at this point, we don't get what I wish this would have been.
Right.
And it's a shame because this episode, like, there is more Kelly stuff. There is more Kelly stuff dealing with stuff that this episode is setting up. But this episode does not conclude in any way.
Right.
And really neither does Kelly's arc much.
Right. And I think the point of this episode is like, well, the conclusion is because this was an episode about the Washingtons, like, the structure was, do we adopt or do we foster Kelly? Yes, we do. And that's the structure of the episode. But it really drops, like, Kelly's agency, and she's the reason I like the first episode so much.
Right. Yeah.
And so where, like, the stuff with Ed and Tamika in this episode is good, it feels like we're missing kind of we're missing some of the heart and the reason, like, this actually matters.
Yeah.
I feel like this would have been a delightful 3-parter.
Yeah.
I agree with you, or at least end the second part with them talking to Kelly.
Yeah,
like, I think this needed to end with Kelly, like, from Kelly's point of view, and it just ended so abruptly, and I would also add, I think their reaction to making the decision to foster was a bit over the top. I mean, Ed said, I feel like I'm in the delivery room right now. Like, we have a child. And it's like, well, no, it is
I forgot about that.
Weeks, if not months, until this girl can be in your home. During that time, they're going to be taking steps to try to get Laura, to get back to a good place. Mm-hmm. And then if and when Kelly does move in with you, in theory, it would be temporary, until Mom gets things squared away. Now, obviously, it looks like she ended up being adopted, but in this moment, I don't know. Like, Liz and I were excited when we decided to be foster parents. So I understand the excitement of making that decision and getting a placement. That is exciting. But to say, like, we have a child, well, heck, you kind of don't. Like, she's not their child.
Yeah.
And at least at this point, ideally, she wouldn't become their child. She would go home to Laura, and life would be happy and great, and they'd live happily ever after.
Yeah, it's a tough thing of these 2 episodes doing a really good job of setting the emotional stakes and having a level of realism and, like, getting you emotionally invested in these characters for these 2 episodes, and doing, for the most part, a really good job of that. But then at the end, it's got to remember, oh yeah, we are a Christian radio show for children.
Yeah.
And so,
that's true.
Like, but it's like, it's an unfortunate thing, because it's like, right, so we go from, this is like, yeah, it's such a, it feels like 2 episodes that are so personal, to the writer and director of the episodes, and also just, like, personal with these characters. And then it's like, right, but the show is not about the Washingtons.
Right, but you have to understand, as podcasters, our job is to delve into this in levels that it was never meant to be delved into.
Oh no,
we are to pull meaning from this that was never meant to be there.
And
that's kind of what I do with everything all the time.
That is, like, the premise of our show, and I'm just, like, sad about it sometimes.
Right.
Where I'm like, I wish that this could, going forward, live up to what it has set up.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, and I was thinking while you guys were talking that this is a lot for 50 minutes of audio. This is less than the length of our show.
That's true.
Each episode.
That's true.
And
we spent an hour talking about a 24-minute episode.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot to say, obviously. But, well, there's a lot that you want to say. I don't know how much I say should be said, but that's aside the point. Yeah, it's a lot to tell both sides of that story, have it be so oriented around Kelly to engage the listener and also create a compelling narrative, but then also be on the side of the Washingtons, which are these established characters that we already know and love, and to show both sides of things, which is an incredibly difficult task to do in general, within 50 minutes across both parts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this part's 25 minutes, and the part one's
23 or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not longer than 25 minutes.
Yeah.
To try and bridge that gap is very hard, and so I think that what we're seeing here is the downside of and the deep misfortune that this character was so promising and had so much potential, but because it kind of happened in the turn of the Odyssey century, as it were, album 50, like, she never really got the arc that she probably deserved or needed it. And I think maybe some sentiments of that are trickling back, and that's why we see a lot of emphasis put on the foster care system in Buck's arc and everything like that. I would be actually very interested to cover that arc in comparison to this one, to know kind of, has their approach to talking about it changed? Has the fact that they have more time and budget to stretch out these things, has that improved the quality at all?
Right, and I think maybe not even just budget and time as much as just like the little bit of new Odyssey that I have dipped into is less ensemble than this era, especially, of just like, there is so many, this is a 12-track album, and there is so much other stuff going on, and like 2 episodes are what we get for this. And then we get like 1 episode in the next album, and 1 episode in the album after that, and then like 3 episodes to wrap it up, and then we're done. So like, it's just like the struggle of dealing with an ensemble show. But
it's kind of like watching that old show Lost, where it could be like 6 episodes till they get back to a plot line that you care about.
yeah, there's a good reason I
Game of Thrones
dropped off of Lost.
Yeah.
Another very wholesome show.
Yeah, Game of Thrones.
Game of
Yes.
Thrones?
That's
Yeah.
another
And
focus on the
Lost,
family.
yeah.
I figured.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. That was a lot here at the end. Any other final thoughts about these episodes? About, I don't know, their handling of these characters and these storylines? Yeah, I don't know. Do you feel like you've said your piece, Arthur?
I think so. I guess I really liked the first part, episode 1, and this one, this episode 2 kind of left me hanging a little bit, and I really thought that like this episode would tie up a lot of the questions of last episode that turns out, I guess, were just irrelevant because they just got ignored.
Assume.
Like, where I think that's the thing. We're just to assume that Kelly ate the ice cream, Kelly stole the money, Kelly deleted the book, Kelly did everything bad that ever happened in Odyssey. So we're supposed to just assume that.
Yeah, they never do talk. There's
Nope. Last episode was an episode about Kelly. This is an episode about the Washingtons.
It absolutely is.
Like,
And they haven't...
And never the two shall meet.
No. And they haven't definitively said whether or not she has the ability to control metal with her mind.
yeah, exactly.
That, I think, that's probably the big kind of continuity error there. They just haven't dealt with that.
And is her mom the other Sith, or does she have a secret twin?
And that's where... Yeah, they
Yeah.
really kind of screwed it up there.
Her trivia page just says that Eugene refers to her as a walking EMP device. Doesn't say anything beyond that.
Right.
Like, I want to know.
Does it actually?
It also says what Kelly's favorite band is,
Skeletal Maidens?
which I did Google. Doesn't seem to exist.
No.
That's
If you ever do come back to talk about the next Kelly episode, we can get into Skeletal Maidens.
Yes, I'm excited about that.
Oh, Scully is a
skull.
skull. Does that shirt still exist? Did you ever make that shirt?
I never did make that shirt. I have designs, but it never actually went up for sale. Anyways,
You put in the work and then didn't follow through. At least I have the courtesy of being lazy and not doing the work.
Says the guy who sat on an episode of his podcast for like a month and a half.
And then deleted it.
Oh, I was talking about this most recent one featuring me.
Or what about the one I was featured in? That still has never been aired. That was like 2 years ago.
This is a reunion for Arthur.
Yeah.
Arthur and Andrew.
Yeah.
That was a deeply unfortunate technological incident that involved my computer just frying, essentially.
I knew I should have just brought my cassette tapes and Walkman and recorded it myself.
You should have, honestly. That would have been pretty metal.
Much like the band Skeletal Maidens,
Yeah.
I assume. So, I don't know. Anything you want to plug again, Arthur? We'll give you a little bit of time here at the end of the episode to kind of say your piece.
Yeah. Well, my piece is my wife and I came out with a curriculum about a year ago called Trusting the God of the Gospel. It's also the name of our podcast. And it is designed to help parents and youth workers who live with or work with adopted and foster teenagers to help them talk to those kids about God. Because as you can imagine, as we think about the story of Kelly, there's a lot that happened in her life that might give her a very skewed understanding of the gospel or very much a barrier to even being able to understand or embrace the gospel. And so the curriculum really it's a video series that really dives into some of those issues of what does it look like to share the gospel with adopted and foster teenagers in a way that kind of makes sense for them, but also embraces some of the past hurts that they have had. So that's at trustingthegodofthegospel.com. You can find that there. Or if yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that seems very relevant to our earlier conversation wherein they discussed the fact that she has lost trust.
Yes.
Everyone in her life has rejected her, including us.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. And if for some reason you want to follow me on social, it's just at Arthur C. Woods. That's all the socials, although I do not yet have the TikTok that all the young people have.
I want
youngins,
Arthur TikTok
real
youngins. Bad.
Or arthurcwoods.com is my website. That is all.
Very cool. So, yeah, that's where we're going to leave things today. Next week, Andrew and I are going to be back with another guest. You'll never guess who. To talk about Bernard and Joseph, Part 1. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Wad Fam Chalk Pod is a presentation of the Lidditz Podcast Co-op. This show is a fan podcast and has no official affiliation with Adventures in Odyssey or focus on the family. As such, the copyright is ours under Creative Commons. Follow the podcast at wadfamchalkpod on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. The Chosen One Part 2 was hosted by Dylan Weaver and Andrew Acebo, with special guest Arthur C. Woods. It was edited by Dylan Weaver. And I'm Nathan Haverstead, hoping you'll join us again next time for more of the Wad Fam Chalk Pod.